Hello, and welcome to Dungeoneer, where we're exploring game development through using AI to build in Unity. In this episode, we're going to dive deeper into our code generation and talk about both what's been working well, as well as talking about what we're going to update and move forward with a little differently. Since our last video, we put our previous code generation practices into work, and we did that through building a player object change where we emulated a lot of the things that we've done with our game enemy object. We also updated our player from a generic hex sprite shape to an actual sprite designed by Dylan. And we even gave it the ability to walk and have some other motions. So we got to play with a little bit of animation now. And then we started updating our room connection logic and then unified our debug overlays. We were starting to get a lot of overlays in everything we were doing. And finally, all of those things came together and kind of gave us another opportunity to work on our agentic processes again. So once again, all good stuff that we've been able to build, but let's get started with kind of where we built from last video and kind of the direction we're going to head after this next video. So like I said about starting with our player object, we began the process by asking the M365 architect to give us a blueprint prompt, which we could then give to the GitHub agent to then go build a player management blueprint file. And this initial ask was just really for the animations, the weapon mount, the fire point, and some other basic features that we knew we needed for our player object. After we received the blueprint, we gave it to the architect again and asked it for what other enhancements we could give it. It recommended enhancements such as a player orientation controller, a debug overlay again, player definitions for animation speeds, dead zones, last name direction, movement dead zones, other kind of enhancements that are really good to have, and especially with player input controls to be integrated better than they were. So once again, we gave those list of enhancements back as a prompt to the agent to go fix the blueprint, and it did. We also told the agent we had a sprite sheet that walks to the right, and we wanted to mirror it walking to the left, so it went through and added that as well. And we did see, once again, some drift in our process where it did add some debug logs instead of game logs, so we had the agent fix the blueprint one more time after we reviewed it. And again, going back through the cycle, we took that completed blueprint along with our project blueprint index, which is our end-to-end list of all the files and what those files do, consolidated through the header metadata that we've talked about in previous videos. Handed those back to the architect. And the one last change that it recommended this time was a player tuning file. It's a place where we can kind of consolidate all the player parameters for fine-tuning of all the little features that the player object can do as we're playing the game. We'd already done something similar for the enemy, so it was really just seeing its patterns that it had put into the game before and giving us those same things just for our player this time. And now that the blueprint's complete, we asked the agent to start implementing it, and eventually it took a bit for it to complete, but when it did, it worked pretty well. In this video, we took out the sprite just so you can see the rotation of the dot relative to the center of the object, and we saw that it worked pretty well. Everything seemed to compile and work great. So the next step was to really kind of give it a character, and so we gave it the sprite sheet and sliced it into two different sprites that we can animate. It took us a little bit of time to get the animation figured out. There was a lot of new layers to connect and bring together, but we do now have our first animation from Dylan's characters. He's currently working on some better floor tiles because right now it looks like we're just floating in a sea that doesn't change, and we want it to be more of a floor that is easy to tell as you're walking over it that it's movement. Now that we've got our player basically implemented, we did the exact same process for trying to connect the rooms. We built a blueprint, did multiple sessions with the agent and architect. We started testing and saw our room debug overlay conflict with our player overlay. And this was kind of a problem because not only was the text small and hard to see, but now we've got layers on top of layers, and it was hard to find the right scene object to go turn it on and off and toggle things independently. So it was definitely time to come back and look at how are we going to overall manage our UI system for debugging purposes. So after conferring with the M365 architect, it suggested doing kind of a unified UI where we would have tabs and hotkeys for each of the core debug layers so that we could quickly toggle them on and off, as well as get good console logs through the process. So we decided this is a good time again to address our code generation process. We used it a couple times as it was, and it was working well. We got really good results, but it was very tedious, going back and forth between the architect and the agent. They lived in different tools, and we were passing files back and forth and creating lengthy prompts. And I know there were times we forgot to add stuff to the prompts, or we didn't prompt it the right way. And it just got to be a little bit more effort than it really should be. But again, we're learning as we're going, and we're just kind of incrementally making one change at a time to our process until we find something that we feel like clicks just right. So this time we decided we're going to take a different approach to it. And instead of having prompt-driven agentic rules, we're going to hard code them. Now we've decided to create more of an identity-based interaction. We have a file for the architect, and then we also have a file for the senior developer. And these are now hard-coded into the editor, so we never have to remember or worry if we forgot any specific details about how they're supposed to do that work. And we did add one more layer because rather than creating 10 separate agents that are all really close and really similar but just do like a slightly different thing, we decided we wanted to create a job-specific context in these different file structures. So we created an agent context folder where we then put all these context files in. And it really kind of gives it the idea of one agent can do many different things or wear many different hats. So we could give it detailed instructions. In this case, we said our first hat was a blueprinting role. And actually not just a blueprinting role, but a refactoring blueprint role. So it would go through and it refactored all of our previous blueprints because those blueprints had grown to thousands of lines of code in some cases. And it's just text kind of describing what it is, how it works, where it's going. But having all of that context in one file was definitely getting token intense. It didn't need everything all the time. It was just inefficient. And so what we asked it to do was kind of refactor everything based on some efficiencies. And so that was just our first use case. And it ran for hours. It cleaned everything up. It fixed everything into a much more efficient, compact, and streamlined fashion. After we finished that, we started building some other context files. So we have a blueprint creation context. We have a blueprint implementation context, and then we have a bug fix and validation context. And these are just our, standard processes that we've been using, but now they're more codified as a job-specific or session-specific role that we can then start a new chat session, go do a very specific role, and then when we're done, hand it off to the next one and to do their role, and even have them talk in between themselves if needed as an agent with a context file and treat that as a separate agent, but not have to truly modify the root agent files every time. And again, we've got other roles that we're going to be building out as we go. So now that our process really better aligns with agent-to-agent communication, we can let the agents talk to themselves more directly and kind of keep ourselves more on the corners of our process where we're still brainstorming the ideas, picking what we want to do, approving the changes, and testing the game. But we've taken ourselves out from having to be the middle layer between the agents, where it's the architect building what should we do, and the agent saying, well, this is what I suggest based on this, and give them a kind of a ability to chat amongst themselves about what that implementation looks like and what testing should be done. And we'll still do the testing ourselves, and we'll still do all the other layers outside, but it's just kind of a unique layer of let them work the way that they need to get their work done without us having to be the one brokering all of that information. So we're going to try this out and see how this works for a little bit. We've got some new patterns for how we interact. So now we have this @Dungeoneer agent or Dungeoneer architect that we're interacting with. It's much easier for us to keep it written out very explicitly with all these words to really say, you know, it's the agent with this context and this particular blueprint creation agent in this case that's on the screen, or, you know, whichever other context that we're working from. And ultimately we can collapse it into direct agent calls if we need to. We could add some aliasing or some other things, but right now we kind of like the idea of using it in this full context just to help us remember, okay, this is what we're doing, this is how we're interacting, and move through it. And we still kind of have our same 4 phases, but these are just the example text that we would use to go start the phase development. Again, we're going to ask 2 different agents, the Dungeoneer agent and the Dungeoneer architect, to work together to design the feature, just like we did before, but we were always the one handing it off back and forth previously. And then we get into the implementation phase where we have a different context for blueprint implementation agent that it runs through and does very specific tasks about, you know, going through and making those changes not only to the files themselves, but to the blueprint as things are being implemented, and kind of checking off the boxes as it's being built, and then giving us back feedback of when it's ready for us to come in and test. And similarly, we also have a context about the testing side of it, and this agent does more than just test its own code, but it also has the ability for us to, you know, share the logs and do deeper dives into all the different layers that we've built for testing, validation, debug, diagnostic, and all that kind of stuff. And then finally, we have a phase for cleanup. After we've done all the implementation and testing, we kind of run through one last test where it will archive legacy code or archive legacy content that's been changed during this pass, as well as clean up the blueprint files so that, again, it's reduced to its minimum content and it's not bloating these files to thousands of lines anymore. In the context in which we're working, sometimes that's okay, but once it's done, we want to kind of break it up and make sure that it's minimized for future context and reference in the area in which it's needed. So now that we've done this change to our code generation process, this is once again kind of our visual layout of what we're doing. We've got the iterative loops where we're outside in the corners now instead of the handoff right between. So we can let the agents talk to themselves and work to build the layers that we are still expecting, but more or less come in at the end to do our game testing or picking the final changes or making the approvals or even brainstorming the next content. So, you know, again, we're going to go off and execute this for a while, see what's working, what's not, and come back and fix it again when it needs something. So thanks again for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.